Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of the Manly Catholic. This is James, your host, and today we have an episode that I recorded with Dan McNally, who I know you've heard several times here on the podcast. But this episode in particular was about Seek. We did a special recording for them back in October, and this was before the Seek conference in St. Louis, Missouri, which occurred this past January, from January 1st through the 5th, I believe it was, in St. Louis. And from everything I have heard and read, Dan actually went to Seek this year as well. But there was, I think, over 22,000 Catholics there, and it just, from what I've heard, it was incredible, and tremendous speakers, but adoration and mass, and just a tremendous amount of spiritual growth that took place. So this, again, was an episode that Dan and I put together for them back in October. Just talked about the conference, Seek, the mission of Seek, what they look to achieve with the parent group or organization is Focus, which, for those of you who are not familiar with Focus, we talk a little bit about that as well, and the importance that they are, especially in the college campuses and college ministry and things like that. So again, this was an episode that we talked about Seek. Very fruitful. Dan kind of goes into his past experiences with Seek. He had been in the previous years as well. I think he went once or twice. But just the importance of connection, especially for men. Going to a conference like that, I think it can be very overwhelming. Why is it important? Why should we even go to these spiritual retreats, these spiritual conferences, these Catholic conferences? Why is that important? What do we hope to gain? What should we look for? So I know Exodus 90 was there as well. I believe they had a booth. They've been posting videos all over about it. So very fruitful conversation that Dan and I went into. We talked about some fears that men might have, especially living out the Catholic faith, especially for young men as well. So for those younger listeners, I think this is very applicable to you. So I hope you all enjoy. And I want to give you guys a bit of a heads up. Starting next week, my family and I are going to California to visit my family, which we're very excited about. So we'll have a couple episodes geared up for you and ready to go then. But I want to sort of take a step back. I have a couple interviews coming up this week at the time I'm recording this. And I'm just going to enjoy my vacation out in California, escape the bitter cold. I think it was 5 degrees by the time I started recording this. Anyways. So we're looking forward to that. So please pray for safe travels for us when we leave. But again, this is an episode regarding the Seek Conference of 2024 in St. Louis, Missouri. I hope you all enjoy. Please click that subscribe button if you're listening to this on YouTube. Please click subscribe if you are listening to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Really helps grow the show. And more importantly, make sure you tell a fellow friend about the podcast. Thank you again so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the episode. Welcome to The Manly Catholic. In this podcast, we will inspire, challenge, and equip all men to become the men they were created to be. Join us as we journey together to become the best versions of ourselves and strive to change our communities one man at a time. Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of The Manly Catholic. This is James, your host, and back again, as you could probably guess by the giggle.
This is Dan
McNally,
your guest.
Dan, welcome back to The Manly Catholic.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing today?
Good.
Good answer.
Thank you.
All right.
I thought
Before
about
we
that.
dive in, very special episode. We'll be talking about Seek. We'll be talking about Focus.
Yes.
We'll be talking about their upcoming conference.
When is it?
January 1st through the 5th.
Oh, they
St.
love
Louis,
kind of hanging out near
Missouri.
the New Year's
And
Feast of Our Lady, Mother of God. Yeah, they do that.
Midwest, because Mr. Dan has been to a Seek conference.
What?
But
How did you know?
But before we dive into that,
Okay.
we're going to start with the St. Michael prayer.
Now, we've done this prayer on this podcast before, but I have to clarify again because I forgot. Do we do safeguard or do we do protection?
Protection.
Okay, I can get on board with that.
In the name of the Father,
Father,
the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Amen. Saint Michael the Archangel,
Defend us in battle. Be our protection against the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. And do thou, O Prince of the heavenly host, by the power of God, cast into hell Satan and all the evil spirits who prowl about the world, seeking the ruin of souls. Amen.
Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Did you hear that?
That was beautiful.
Seeking
Oh,
the ruin of souls. Well, okay, I don't know. Maybe.
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about.
Okay.
First of all, let's talk about Focus.
Sure.
Who puts on the Seek conference. So Dan, tell our listeners about Focus.
Well, I am not affiliated with Focus in any way. My understanding is that Focus is an acronym, and it's Fellowship of Catholic University Students, and they have an outreach in a number of college campuses across the country. I don't know if across the globe is accurate. I should have prepared that information beforehand, but you can Google that.
I will look it up.
I have many friends who are Focus missionaries. Basically, their job is there's a lot of fundraising to do, because really their job over the course of the school year is to minister to college-age students, right? And so they generally live on college campuses. Sorry, I was never a Focus missionary, so I'm probably going to butcher the explanation, but basically they live on college campuses. I feel like it's usually teams of like 2 or 3 guys, 2 or 3 girls with a lead team member, and they set up Bible studies. They do fun events. They put together just a lot of really beautiful ways for college-age young people to encounter Christ in community, in event settings, in liturgy, all sorts of different ways. They just bring the Lord to the college campus, and they've done a lot of good. I've seen a lot of good. I have a lot of friends who are Focus missionaries, and it's a beautiful life. I make it sound like they do it forever. Usually, when people are Focus missionaries, it's, I think, 2 years at least is the primary commitment that somebody makes, but they can stay on for a little while longer. They can be like a team lead and things like that. But yeah, just doing the Lord's work on the college campus, I would say, is the simple way to say it.
Yeah, I mean, their mission statement is to know Christ Jesus and fulfill his great commission. And obviously, Jesus said, go out and make disciples of all nations. So Focus, they strive to form Catholic missionaries rooted in church teaching, prayer, scripture, and evangelization. They go out into the world, invite people into a joyful life with Christ, and walk with them as they grow in faith. And I remember when my wife and I were in Boulder, Colorado, at St. Thomas Aquinas Parish, which was attached to CU Boulder, which is a very secular university, for those of you who don't know. But they had
James, what does secular mean?
Secular means basically non-Christian.
Yeah, worldly, right?
Worldly. And they had a very strong Focus presence over at CU Boulder. Very active in the parish, and then obviously on the university level as well. But yeah, especially the parish that was attached to, they always had events designed for college students, and they really tried to make that outreach, especially being in CU Boulder, which is a beautiful place to be. A lot of kind of a destination university. People from all over the country come. So, but also unfortunately, which I think was one of the main missions that Focus had been put together, which is now 25 years, is to have students, because too often they go to college and they lose their faith. So having that firm foundation rooted in scripture, prayer, community helps them keep the faith.
I almost don't want to ask this question because I feel like we'll get too off track. It might be a completely different episode topic, but I'm like, why do you think that is? Why do you think it's so easy for people at college age to go off to college and lose their faith? Is it just like a lack of catechesis? Is it the attractiveness of certain like cultural things on a college campus that is just like overwhelming to maybe what little root has taken of their faith in high school? Or like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a rhetorical question.
No, I think it is a good question, though, because, I mean, it really is.
It's like, why does Focus need to exist?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think a lot of times, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but even just in high school, you know, we kind of base our faith based on what our family grew up with, right? And a lot of times, if you didn't really grow up in a culture or environment where you were really challenged in your faith, where you really didn't have to dig deep, you think that everyone believes the same things that you do. So why dig deep? Why establish a firm foundation? So I think that's why. But yeah, I think it's a combination, like you said too. I mean, the appeal, obviously, you're on your own for the first time. You have all this independence. If you end up, obviously traveling away from home, there's temptations everywhere, especially as a young man, which we'll be focusing more on men in this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
But for a young man, there's fraternities, there's parties, there's sports, there's intramurals, you can stay up all night, play video games, no one telling you what to do.
Well, and I think Focus provides like a safe place for those who were catechized well by their family, by their church, whatever, in high school. Like I was a high school theology teacher, so you look at the kids in the class and you're like, all right, I know who is probably going to survive and who's probably not. So it's like it provides that place for those who want to continue to cultivate their faith to grow. But I mean, it also is outreach for those who are Catholic, or even those who have no foundation in the Catholic faith, but perhaps have been curious or want to know a little bit more. So there's a lot of outreach in that sense as well. But I think it's really amazing that they're on so many, as you say, secular campuses for it's almost like an embassy. It's like a Vatican embassy on a college campus of like, oh, I go here, and this is a place for me to be safe as a citizen of heaven.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of cool. So
another thing that Focus puts on, and I was just looking, this is the 25th year. It said.
Is it of Focus or of Seek?
It says conference now in its 25th year.
Sweet.
Which is crazy. I had no idea.
25 years ago.
So they put on a conference. Yeah, they put on a conference every year. It's called the Seek Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And Dan, you went to the Seek. First of all, let's back up. What is the Seek Conference? Obviously, Focus is this incredible mission on campus, creating disciples, creating missionaries to go out in the world. Then they put on this conference. So what is a Seek conference? Let's start with that.
I will tell you how I was invited to a Seek conference. So my brother's a priest. I don't know if I've said that on the podcast before, but my brother is a Catholic priest. And he sent me a text one day and he said, hey, I'm going to the Seek conference in January. Tonight is the last night to get like discounted rate for the tickets. And I was like, when do I have to decide by? And he's like, midnight. And I was like, okay, you really need to get better at like giving me some time to make a decision. I'm like, where is this? What is this? What is going on? So I had to do a little deep dive within the course of a few hours. And I think it's honestly just to really boil it down, it's an opportunity for those communities that Focus has already created on college campuses, but also just for anyone who's college age generally to go and kind of be reinvigorated in that mission that James explained a minute ago, right? Just go and be surrounded by 15,000, 20,000, other Catholic college students and realize, oh, I'm not alone in what I'm trying to do at my college campus. There are people everywhere. There's a verse in scripture that I'm not going to quote well, but there's one that basically it's an encouragement. I think it's St. Paul, and it's an encouragement that says, I think it's actually the one that's in evening prayer that goes, or maybe it's a night prayer that goes, your enemy, the devil, is prowling like a lion looking for prey. The next line after that one is, for remember that your brothers around the world are fighting the same fight that you're fighting. Again, that's not an exact translation, but you can kind of Google that quote if you want to. Save me here. Throw me a life
I got you.
life preserver.
Looking it up.
But I mean, I think that's kind of what it boils down to. Is this is a conference where you can go and educate yourself on your faith, be surrounded by people your age, your stage of life, who want what you want, essentially, to follow Christ in the same context that you're following Christ, right? You can have mentors in the faith who are, a different generation from you, that are significantly older, or you can have people that maybe you're even mentoring that are significantly younger. But to be surrounded by people in your stage of life who want the same things that you want in regards to their relationship with Jesus Christ. I was surrounded by 15,000 people at that conference, and that was pretty great. Now, granted, I was a little bit older than most of the people at that conference, but I was in PT school.
Yeah.
I was going back to school.
Oh, yeah.
So, technically I was a college student.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my state of life at the time. So it was kind of fun. So I went in 2019.
Yeah.
So it was 4 years ago at the time of this recording.
Well, another thing too, because I was looking at the conference this year, which is in, like I mentioned earlier, in St. Louis. And it's not just for people who are in college, it's people post, because they have different talks, different speakers, different tracks, so to speak.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. So it's not just for those who are in college, but
isn't it different every year? Like it alternates. There's a Seek conference, and then there's, I forget what the other one's called.
I'm not sure.
I'll have to look it up.
Yeah. But
sorry, everyone who knows.
So it was, be sober and vigilant. Your opponent, the devil, is prowling around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Next line, resist him, steadfast in faith, knowing that your fellow believers throughout the world undergo the same sufferings.
I think a lot of the time we don't remember our fellow believers throughout the world undergoing the same sufferings.
And that's what I love about conferences like Seek, because I personally have never been, but it sounds amazing. I know one of our babysitter who watches our kids, she's been to Seek conference. She loves it, talks about it frequently. There's so many great speakers, and I mean, I know you're going to talk about, like Jason Everett and Chris Stefanik and things like that. But I mean, besides just the speakers, I mean, they're just opportunity for mass, confession, adoration, just like you said, having that community of believers surrounding you. Because, yeah, it can be isolating, especially on a college campus. Maybe you are going to a very secular university where you feel like you're the only, maybe it doesn't have a strong parish in the area. You feel like, oh my gosh, am I alone in this? But having this opportunity, it can be a breath of fresh air, knowing that, hey, I actually am doing something right. And it forms those, especially nowadays with social media and the way we're always connected with one another. You can meet people from all across the country and you can stay connected.
Well, and I think that's kind of perfect with the theme for this year. And my understanding is the theme this year is you are the light, right?
Be the light.
Or be the light.
Yes.
And to remember, not only are you lifted up by your brothers and sisters in Christ who are there, and when you're not at the conference, who are spread throughout the world doing the same work that you're doing, but you are a light for them. Remember that when you go to those conferences, you are a light to all the other people that are there. They see you and they are encouraged as well. So don't underestimate that, right?
100%.
Christ lives in your soul as well.
Right. Okay, so 2019.
Yes. But pre-COVID, everything was different.
Your brother invited
15,000 people in the same place.
Last minute. It was at Indianapolis, I think.
That's correct.
Said.
Yep, I did end up going.
So you did end up going. So tell our listeners, what was the feeling like when you got there? Were you excited? Were you nervous? Were you like, what the heck is going on? I don't really want to be here, but my brother, who's a priest, invited me. I felt like I kind of had to go.
Right. You can't say no. You can't say no to your brother who's a priest inviting you to a Catholic conference.
Yeah.
You can, I guess. But, well, my first thing was like money because I had zero money at the time.
Grad school. Yeah.
And I was in grad school. But I got to say, man, anytime that I really feel the Lord pulling me, and I don't want to like guilt anyone into it. And there's like a modest financial investment involved. Like we got to be prudent. But honestly, a lot of the time, me saying that I'm being prudent is me just being like fearful. And it's so worth it. It was like 4 or 5 days. It's a long conference.
Yeah,
it's a
days.
long commitment of time, and it is so good to just leave the world for a minute if you have the time. And there's any way that you're able to make it work financially, it is, and you're just seeking to follow Christ. Like, just do it. Just pull the trigger on that because it's powerful. So yeah, especially if your brother tells you the night of still being able to get the cheaper ticket prices. Then you save even more money, right? So just keep that in mind. I don't know if you still can for this year, but you probably, because it was like October. And
yeah, I mean, we're recording September 27th.
Right.
So
get this podcast out there. So I agreed, and I did feel a little weird because I was, what was I in 2019? I would have been, how old does that make me?
He's bad at math, ladies and gentlemen. 28.
28?
Okay.
28. Yeah, it would be easier to just do today minus 4 years.
You could have, but that's all right.
28. I was 28. So most people, at the Seek conference are probably like anywhere from 18 to 25-ish, right? But I did know all the Focus missionaries at the school that my brother was essentially the chaplain for, I guess. He was at the student parish. So I was like, okay, well, they're friends of mine, and, it'll be, the students are cool, and I'll just kind of go with their group. And, I didn't have a whole lot of anxiety about it. It was mostly whenever I have to make a big decision like that, like I'm buying a ticket to something. Usually after I make the decision, there's
You're all in.
There's no regret. It's like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't have a lot of anxiety about it, and I was very excited. So I think drove down separately. It was in Indianapolis, which is like a 5 or 6 hour drive, but it's a pretty straight shot from we were coming from Kalamazoo. And yeah, man, you get there and it's just like electric. Like, the city is just alive with Catholic young people.
How cool is that?
And you feel it. You just see it everywhere. It's weird because I feel like people who are alive in Christ, you just know the energy. Mm-hmm. You just like, there's just like people smiling and laughing all over the place. Right. And you're like, there's joy here. Like the atmosphere is different.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not even in the convention center. There's like people all over. It's just like, something's different, man. Something's happening here.
Yeah.
So that energy right when you get there is so exciting, even if you're, not right, if you're not 18 to 25, like for the groups that are going, there's something always electric about it. Always that was honestly kind of the conversion, or whatever you want to call that, continued conversion for me growing up, was meeting people who were authentically living out their faith. It's always been Catholic community for me. It's always, and Curtis Martin was actually giving a talk at this Seek conference, and one of the things he talked about that was an image that stuck with me since then is this kind of glowing fire in the middle of sort of a snowy night, people sitting around this fire, and there's a bunch of glowing coals. And he said the coals continue to glow and burn hot as long as they are together. He said, but if you took tongs and grabbed a coal and put it out in the snow, how fast would the light and the warmth go away? And I was like, dang, that is so true. And that's that warmth, that fire, is that electricity that you feel there, and that you feel in kind of the focus communities on campus and, parishes that are alive. So yeah, it was electric.
Powerful.
Yeah, it was electric.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you think about it too, gosh, I love that imagery. Yeah. When the coals are together, because it's just like, so often we isolate ourselves. I mean, COVID, you mentioned COVID.
Hadn't happened yet. We lived in a pre-COVID world at that time.
That is true, but how isolated people were, and
yeah, the contrast.
I mean, talk about spiritual warfare, spiritual combat. What is Satan? He's the great divider, right? And so if he can divide you, it's easier to conquer you. But if you're together, if you have your brothers, if you have your sisters in Christ with you, like you said, it's electric. You can feel it.
Yeah,
like you can't be touched because you have this energy, and like you said, having that love for Christ that's just, permeating through the walls of, I'm sure it was like the convention center or whatever.
Yeah.
It's infectious. It's contagious, but in a good way. Like you want to catch it, and you can't help but, when you have the Holy Spirit, that's just clearly in a place like this, people who are ready, who are eager for more Jesus, you're going to be changed, which I'm sure you experienced that too.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
All right,
when you have a convention center where a large ballroom is converted into an adoration chapel.
Oh gosh, yeah. Okay, so they have adoration. They had speakers. So tell us about some of the speakers that you experienced.
Which speakers do you want me to talk about? I'm a Father Mike fanboy, and so is everybody if they're honest with themselves.
That is true.
But well, I brought my Seek booklet with me today, and I have it sitting in front of me since we don't have any sort of video. Let me just kind of think through the speakers that I remember. I remember obviously Father Mike was there. I went to Trent Horn's talk. I always love Trent Horn's stuff because he's an apologist, and he's very good. And he is married to somebody that I met on my first day of freshman year in a theology class. His wife Laura sat next to me in my intro to theology class, and then I heard her name later on, and I was like, what the heck?
That is
such
awesome.
a small world.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, no, Trent is awesome. Edward Sree was there, Chris Stefanik, Father Mike Schmitz, Jason Everett. Oh, you get to meet them. Like, that's the cool part, is you get to actually interact with these speakers, and you realize, I think sometimes there's like the sort of like celebrity Catholic speakers that maybe aren't super authentic, but that's like so few and far between.
Yeah.
I've maybe encountered that once.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Sister Bethany Madonna. I got to meet Sister Miriam James Highland, Jason Everett, Chris Stefanik. I didn't meet Father Mike because, come on, you're never going to, that line is too long.
Yeah, for sure.
But just incredible and authentic people. Just giving really, really beautiful talks. Particularly, the ones that stood out to me the most, honestly, were Sister Miriam James and Sister Bethany Madonna. Those are my two favorites. Yes. They're rock stars.
Was there one maybe theme or topic that really sticks out to you? I know the booklet you have, it looks like you have room to take notes and stuff, and anything that really stands out. Yeah, Sister Miriam James Highland. If you guys have not heard her speak, she was at the CAFA men's conferences last year in Grand Rapids, and she gave a talk which was just phenomenal. Like, she is just a powerhouse of a woman.
I think the beauty of Sister Miriam James is, one, she's authentic and she's humble, and that I think speaks to this generation of students. And she comes from a place of pain. She comes from a place of trauma.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I feel like, come from places of trauma. I feel like they can't talk about it, and they hear her speak, and she speaks with such authenticity and such gentleness that she's just magnetic. And if you don't know who this is, look her up right now. You're not going to regret it.
Well, she has a podcast with two of her really good friends, the Abiding Together podcast, which is, my wife always listens to that.
Oh, she's
delightful. Even I listen to that too. So great podcast.
Yeah. So that's one element to the Seek conferences is you go to these talks. You can take notes. It's intellectually stimulating. They're always very entertaining. The speakers are very entertaining. But just spiritually, I feel like you're just coming into contact with. And it's not people who are perfect. I think sometimes we can get this saint complex where like we look at a saint and they're like porcelain statue, and it's like I can never relate. That's why I really emphasize like go meet them, go talk to them because they're so fantastic.
Yes.
Like one example of that I think is really amazing. Early on, I think one of the first talks I ever listened to my freshman year in high school that got me like on this whole Catholic world, young adult world, was Jason Everett, Romance Without Regret video. Back in like 2005. So I waited in line to meet Jason and Kristalina because they were there, and why not? I had a little time on my hands. And the funny thing was, I was a theology teacher for 4 years, and I had my own students watch the same video. I was curious to see if it kind of held up after 10 or 15 years or whatever, since I had seen it for the first time, and I wanted them to kind of write on it and write honestly on it. I didn't want them to be like, why is it good? I wanted them to be like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
How does this hit you? Just to be honest, because honestly, I feel like they process it better that way. I had one student who wrote a 6-page paper. I only required 2 pages, double-spaced. I got a 6-page paper, single-spaced, from one student who hated it.
Oh.
Hated it.
Really?
Yeah. At least that was kind of
Did you send it to Jason Everett and say...
Well, that's, yeah. So here's the thing. So that 6-page paper was circulated among all the students at the school. They all read it. And it was like this kind of like, whoa, did you hear what so-and-so wrote as a response to Mr. McNally, the video that they had in Mr. McNally's theology class? So when I got to, I probably could have phrased this better, but I got up to him and I was talking to him. I told him about, how much, his work has really moved me and inspired me. And I was like, by the way, I have one student who hated your work, hated Romance Without Regret. When I showed it to them, wrote a 6-page paper on how much they hated it. Do you want to know what his exact response was without missing a beat?
What?
He's like, can you give me this student's email address?
Yes. Did you?
I did. Well, I reached out to the student and I was like, hey, do you remember that guy you hated? He wants to talk. And so the student's like, yeah, absolutely. Why not? So apparently over the course of the weekend, they exchanged some emails about it. And fast forward, so she was a student at University of Michigan at the time, and he was coming to, I think it was Gabriel Richard High School over on the east side.
Okay.
And I reached out and I was like, hey, he's coming to this school really close to you. Do you want to go?
Yeah.
And she was like, well, I can't drive. And I was like, well, I'm coming. We will go together. And so we literally, it's so funny. It was like, it came full circle. And it's not like a situation where it's like, oh yeah, she was totally convinced of everything that he said. But what moved me was he was like, I want to talk.
Yeah.
I want to hear, not talk to convince, but he was like, I want to talk.
I want to
hear what she has to say.
Yes.
I love that.
Because I interviewed Jason too, and I've heard him speak on podcasts, and he has his own podcast too. Mm-hmm. And that is always his first, I guess, response or point he always makes is that these people have stories.
Yeah.
And they are resisting what we're telling, whatever the church is telling, for a reason.
Exactly.
And so instead of being super defensive,
they're not just
about
bad people or something.
Yeah, they're not just bad, but yeah, a lot of people have wounds,
right?
So and they could have heard that video that he produced in 2005, I think.
Right, it was a long time ago.
And whatever it was, something probably hit her,
right? And
there could have been a huge wound or trauma or just just poor formation or whatever the case might be. And he always responds though, like without missing a beat. You says like, "What's her email address? I'd love to talk to her."
And that's the thing. Like, I think that kind of caricature that I gave of like, oh well, there's people with the whole celebrity complex of like, well, they're a Catholic speaker, but they're not really accessible.
Yeah.
I don't think that's super common. I think it exists, but I don't think it's super common. I think another really good counterexample to that is my guy, Father Mike Schmitz. I will tell you that I've emailed him no fewer than 4 times, maybe 5 times, with sincere questions. I'm not trying to like waste his time.
Yeah.
I had very sincere questions every time. And one of the times I emailed him, I sent him like 5 paragraphs. Like, and it was like angry. I was like angry.
Yeah.
Because there were some stuff I was really struggling with at the time. He emailed me back every time. And the sign, I mean, somebody was like, well, Dan, that's his secretary emailing you back. It's like, no, it's not. You can tell from the way he types.
Yeah.
And his sign off, he has a quote at the bottom. I think it's from C.S. Lewis. And he's like, if I can give any of my time, like, who's to say that my time is more valuable than someone else's?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that kind of servant heart attitude that Jason immediately took without missing a beat. Father Mike takes and responding to all of my emails. I'm not saying they're perfect. Again,
right.
I've heard people tell stories where they feel like, they've been like, maybe not had the best, but the point where they're human beings, right?
They could have had a really bad day.
And that's the attitude that they approach things with is, I want to serve. I want to seek out this person.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that's amazing. That's one of the things is the people that are at Seek that are speaking to you, that are sharing with you are sincere witnesses, I think, for the lion's share of them.
Yeah. I mean, I know the story of, John Paul II, one of his best character traits was that if you were speaking with him, you felt like you were the only person in the room, and that, I think that's a trait.
Especially if you were the only person in the room.
Especially if you were the only person. He had no other place to go. But no, I mean, yeah, because I agree too, because, reaching out I've had Jason Everett on the podcast and some other guests too, and how willing they are to give their time.
Yes.
And, these true witnesses, I think, even, I forgot to look at the speaker lineup this year for Seek, but I mean, so many are, like you said, authentic witnesses, and they are truly giving their time back to Christ in the church. And so, going and meeting these people who you may have heard are like, oh, like I'd love to meet them or love to actually speak with them. Like a lot of times this is your chance, because this is when they're most available. And a lot of times too, I know speakers, when they book this, whether they're there for 2 days or 3 days or the whole conference, they're like, when I'm there, I'm fully there.
Right.
So I know Chris Stefanik, I heard him talk, and he said, look, you guys booked me for the night. I will stay here until 3 a.m. and speak with you guys. And he's like, I'm not leaving until the last person leaves. And that's how these people are, because they are so willing to give their time. That's why I love, like you said, these conferences here too. And it's refreshing to see, because especially in the secular world, we're like, oh, like I'll never be able to talk to them. Like the Catholic world is, yes, there might be these quote unquote celebrities, but they're also very real and down to earth, and they're willing to give back.
And for the most part, they're celebrities for a reason. They've risen above because people are like, this is a person who loves the Lord.
Right.
I would say it's the difference between like watching a YouTube video about how to surf and like getting out there with a surfboard and an instructor and just like diving in.
Yes.
Like you're there, you're immersed, and it really is life changing. Like I feel like I'm trying to sell it, like spend the money, go to take the days off or whatever. Yeah. But like it is such a big difference, and it is such an experience. I have a Chris Stefanik story, but I can save it for later.
No. You said you had stories. You said you had a few stories.
Well, I want to make sure we touch on everything you want to touch on with regard to
Let's talk about it. Conference. We got 30 more minutes, man.
Okay, so I'm in the Adoration Chapel.
Yes.
The giant Adoration Chapel, the banquet hall Adoration Chapel, and I'm walking, and there's a guy with a plaid shirt in front of me. I say that only because it's an important detail for later. I don't like seek out people with see what I did there? I don't seek out people with a plaid shirt to follow. And I wasn't following this person, to be fair. I was walking down the back aisle of the Adoration Chapel because I was going to go pray before dinner. And like the person with the plaid shirt stops dead in his tracks. Now, I don't even know who this person, I mean, this just is a person in a plaid shirt to me at this point. And I like, whoa, I stop, because they stop, right? He turns around and looks directly at me. And it's Chris Stefanik. And I'm like, well, that's weird. But he like looks at me like I've been following him. Oh my gosh. And then he like turns around and keeps going. And
so he didn't say anything to you?
He didn't say anything to me.
He just looked right at you.
He stopped in his tracks, looked at me, and then kept going. I'm sure
Maybe he just prayed for you.
Thank you, Chris. I hope he doesn't remember these events.
Oh,
but,
he totally does.
Well, good. Comment below. Is that a thing? I don't know. So he kept walking, and then I veered off up towards Jesus, because that's what I came to do. Went and prayed. Went back to the hotel room, grabbed my brother, and we went down to... No. On the way back up to the hotel to grab my brother from the hotel room, so he was like taking a nap or something. I was like walking back towards the hotel, and I was like, that's super weird. Like, why did that happen? He probably thinks that I'm like fanboying over him, that I'm like a super fan, and that I was literally following him. Well, I'm glad that didn't last that long, right? So I'm walking back towards the hotel. So it's like the convention center is attached by like Skybridge to hotel. So walking across the bridge, I'm in the hotel like lobby and there's no one there. Except
Chris Stefano.
There's a person in front of me with a plaid shirt on. I'm not even kidding. So I'm like walking back to the elevator lobby. It occurs to me very quickly. I'm like, I've seen that plaid shirt recently. And he is walking in the same direction I am, but also in front of me, just like before. Deja vu. And so I'm like, all right, well, at least we're in a hotel lobby. There's going to be a lot of people. It's not going to be weird for very long. We get to the elevator lobby where there's like 6 elevator doors. No one is there. There are 15,000 people at this conference and no one is in the elevator lobby. I don't know how that's even possible. That's a miracle, probably. And so here's the thing, though. I'm like still behind him as we approach the elevators, and I want like to have a reason to be there. My reason to be there is to press the button to get on the elevator to show that I came there to go up the elevator. He pressed the button because he was in front of me. So he pressed the button as I'm like, I need a cause to be here. And then he turns around again and he sees me. He's like, oh, hey. So he, I think, had the flu that night or like was very sick or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, hey, Chris, how's it going? I mean, I figured I could say that because he's famous.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to know his name. And I like sort of introduced myself and I like reached out my hand to shake his hand, but he was holding his notes in his right hand. So what ended up happening was I like shook his pinky finger.
Uh-huh.
And I got to say something, like I think Chris Stefanik is great, but I already told you, I'm a Father Mike fanboy. Like I'm not like a big Chris Stefanik fanboy. I'm like aware of him, but I'm like, why did this have to happen now? Yeah. Like I'm not even like a big super fan. I'm like Chris Stefanik is great, but now I'm shaking his pinky, looking like an idiot, and the elevator doors open. It's just the two of us, of course. So we both step into the elevator. We're now in a small enclosed space together and don't know what to say to each other. So the door's shut, and I'm trying to think to myself, how can I interact with him in a meaningful, man-to-man way that doesn't make me seem like a fanboy? Because I'm not, right? And I'm like, I knew he was giving the keynote that night, so I was like, oh, how's your talk going? Are you like ready to give it? I'm sure you're not nervous, because you do this all the time or whatever. He's like, yeah, just a little bit sick, so not feeling great, but, doing good. Again, just like a very normal response. And I was like, all right, as long as I don't like take a selfie with him, I think we'll be fine, right? And I didn't. And then he got off at his exit or whatever, his floor, and I was like, all right, man, good luck. Be praying for you. Door shut. I go up, find my brother. We get ready. We go down to dinner. So we're like getting ready to go down to dinner. We get in the elevator. We're heading back down. This is 20, 30 minutes later, right? We get out of the elevator. There's like a million people down there now. Not 0, like a million. We're walking towards the restaurant because it's one of those restaurants that's like in the hotel right by the elevators. There's like the menu outside in a little glass case. And my brother and I are standing outside of the elevator. I don't know how this timing works. I just attract weird things to me, I think. And I'm like standing there in front of the restaurant because my brother and I are waiting in line to go to the restaurant. But I like somehow my body is like now angled towards the elevator, I guess. And I just look over at the elevator because I'm just looking around because we're waiting. And the elevator doors open.
The plaid shirt.
And Chris Stefanik is staring me dead in the eyes like I've been waiting in the lobby for a half hour just to look at him. And we just share one more glance, and I'm like, I can't. This is not. No, I'm not even like this isn't. I haven't. What? So he gave his talk, did a great job. But as he was leaving, they're like, please, Chris is sick tonight, so he's just going to head back to his hotel room. It didn't matter. He was like on a golf cart, and they took him on a golf cart, and there were literally girls chasing him, trying to take selfies with him. I felt vindicated. I was like, he probably thinks they're worse than I am. But that's my Chris Stefanik story.
Oh, gosh. That is amazing. Only at Seek, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. You too can
Seek.
convince Chris Stefanik that you're his fanboy when you're not. I love you, Chris. You're great.
Chris is great.
He is great.
Yeah.
I remember when the moral relativism, his relativism book, that little booklet came out. He came to speak at Steubenville, and that was awesome. Yeah. He's great. I just mean to say, like, I'm not like, he wouldn't be the speaker that I like try to like follow and talk to.
That's just funny. What I mean? That
happened.
Three separate encounters.
I hope he hears this.
I'm sure he will. Chris Stefanik, you're amazing.
I need you to know that I wasn't following you.
He's not a stalker. We don't bring stalkers on the
No,
podcast,
we don't.
Chris.
We don't.
So,
So,
all right. So, one more story.
one more story.
One more story.
Which one?
You said you had 3.
I do. I have one more. It's perfect.
Do the perfect one.
Well, I was I was joking with James beforehand because it's like, oh, we're talking to college age guys, and I was like, well, I can talk about how I met my future wife at Seek, but I'm single, so that would be a lie. But I
we also don't invite liars on the podcast.
I have neither of those things. Well, I mean, if I lie, I confess it.
True.
Awkward. So I will tell one more funny story. It's about how I met my spiritual director for all of PT school.
Yes.
So in Grand Rapids, there was this young adult community called Koinonia that was around for like 20 years, and it was really good. It was every Tuesday night. They would do adoration. Well, yeah, adoration, rosary, and then they would have a talk, and then like social time afterwards. It was really, really beautiful, life-giving, really filled my cup for several years. And they would always have a different speaker every week. And one of the speakers was this guy who was a priest, but he was, I don't want to say like a late vocation. He was a little bit later vocation. He ended up going to seminary, and I think in his mid to late 30s, because he had kind of bounced around a lot, and I've bounced around a lot. And I'm just kind of that's sort of my just attention span and just my personality is, I've tried a lot of different things, but so I don't know. I resonated with his story, and I just remember kind of tucking that away and being like, this guy's cool. And I at the beginning of PT school, I was thinking to myself, man, I would really like to get a spiritual director because I haven't had one in a while. And let me just tell you, everyone who's listening, if you don't have a spiritual director and you have questions about the faith and you don't know exactly what's coming next or how to kind of discern it, I cannot stress enough. Get yourself a spiritual director.
100%.
Oh my gosh. Life-changing. However, I did not have one at this point in the story. So, remember that part of the last story where I went up to get my brother and go to dinner? Well, this is a story from inside that story. It was in the middle of it. Because I was walking back to elevator, and I kid you not, it's funny, the Lord's timing is kind of funny sometimes. I was thinking to myself, walking down the hallway from the room to the elevator, I was thinking, I really need to get on that spiritual director thing. And I said to myself, I'm not kidding about this timing either. As I was walking towards the elevators, I was like, I wonder about that priest. I think his name was like Father Bill. He came to give a talk at Koinonia, and I think he'd be a really great guy to talk to about spiritual direction, just because I feel like his story really aligns with, my personality and my story as well. And I was like, maybe when we get back, I should like reach out to him. I'm not kidding you. The elevator doors opened after I had that thought, and he was standing there alone in the elevator. And I looked at him and I was like, Father Bill? And he's like, oh, hey, yeah, hi. And he obviously didn't know who I was, which is totally okay. And I was like, yeah, can we talk? And I'm not saying that's how it's going to happen for you. You go to Seek, you get a spiritual director. You go to Seek, you meet your wife. You go to Seek, you get to be friends with Chris Stefanik.
Or stalk him.
What'd you say?
Or
stalk
him.
I thought you said Dawkins. It's like he's not invited to speak at Seek. But yeah, I just think it's kind of it was such a crazy, like the timing. It's just funny when like you have a plan and the Lord just like laughs at you and he's like, how about this? He just has good timing. So those are my stories. When I accidentally stalked Chris Stefanik, when I told Jason Everett that my student hated his work, and when I accidentally found my spiritual director immediately after thinking about him. Go to Seek.
Seek it out. All right. So what would you say is your biggest takeaway
Community.
from Seek?
Community.
Okay.
Seek out community. Create community if it's not there. If you're on a college campus that doesn't have Focus or like St. Paul's Outreach or like, other Catholic organizations that intentionally create that community, that discipleship, find it. I mean, it's cheesy, but like seek it out, like make it. If it's not there, find a way to make it there. It's that Curtis Martin example, I think, was the one thing, the most vivid thing that I took away from that conference was that image of the coals.
I love that. I'm still thinking about that.
I have been in the fire and I have been in the snow.
Yeah.
And it's
100%.
A very different life.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, because the theme of this year coming up is be the light.
Yeah.
And, echoes what Jesus said, you're the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And, I think you mentioned this before we even started recording was, even in the darkest room,
Yeah.
just a little flicker of light and how much that actually permeates throughout the whole room.
Yeah.
And I think too, what we neglect is that it's so easy, and we talk about isolation. We've talked about that a few times. Is when you're surrounded by people who don't believe the same things that you do, who aren't Catholic. Maybe they're persecuting you because you are Catholic,
Or maybe they are waiting to hear what you have to share.
Yeah, and I think we it's so easy to conform to the world, the worldly standards.
It's very easy.
And people, if you know scripture, what Jesus talks about is fear. Don't I always butcher scripture passages, but fear God rather than man, the one who can destroy your soul.
Do not fear the one who can destroy your body, but fear the one who can destroy
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan McNally. And especially young men out there in a culture where toxic masculinity and men are kind of cast aside, so to speak. It's hard to be the light because you are constantly maybe shouted down upon or said you're too aggressive or whatever the case might be for those of the young men listening out there. And especially like I was telling you too, I had, when I went to high school, my freshman year, I was at a public school, and I know.
How did you do that?
I don't know. But for those of you who play sports, locker room talk. We've all heard about like locker room talk and everything. And being in public school, they would often talk about having sex with girls and things like that. And I was a virgin at the time. It's very hard to admit that you're a virgin, and amidst of a bunch of football players.
I'm a virgin.
Right? Yeah. See,
there it is.
Bunch of football players?
I mean, there might be football players.
That is true. There's probably some. But no.
How embarrassing.
Because you don't know, too, by admitting that.
No, it's true. I mean, there's a huge pressure with all those people.
100%.
And it's not even necessarily any individual that's like putting that on you, but having all of them there's just this collective. Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly. And so you don't know, if you say that, you don't know who hears that and who's inspired by that. Mm-hmm. And who totally changes
that's a
the
really good.
trajectory.
I'm glad you said that. It's kind of like when when it's like election season and you see people putting out signs for their candidate.
Yeah.
Like, I used to think that was stupid, and I was like, "What? Like, you're going to convince me to vote for your guy because there's the sign with their name on it is in your yard?"
Right.
But I realized, it's not for that. Like, it's and maybe this is me just looking at it with my own sort of spin, but like, it's to encourage the people of like mind that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Is when you stand up, it's not just actively fighting the enemy. It's stirring a fire in the hearts of those people that are too scared to do it themselves.
Right. Yeah. And again, thank you, sir. You don't know who is listening. Like when we put on this podcast too, we don't know who's going to listen to this. We don't know who, by your witness and your testimony, that might inspire somebody to go to the Seek conference and ends up changing the course trajectory of their life. Like, you just don't know, and I interviewed someone yesterday too for the podcast, and they talked about, how his biggest parable that he talks about, not parable, but witness from Jesus that he gives to talks to men is when Jesus fed the 5,000, and he said, okay, so what did he ask his disciples? Okay, so he said, okay, they said, okay, we don't have any food. We need to send them away. Go get the food. And he said, well, you feed them.
Mm.
And they kind of, I mean, you can imagine, like, they probably laughed at Jesus, like, oh, okay, Jesus. And they're like, you're serious, okay? He's like, okay, so what do you have? And they're like, okay, we have like 2 loaves, 3 fish, whatever their amount was. Like, this would not make a dent in anyone's bellies, right? And Jesus basically said, well, give it to me. And the little you have to give, the little that you think you have to give, Jesus will take that and he will expand that infinitely.
Did you interview Dallas Jenkins?
I did not interview Dallas Jenkins.
He loves the 5 loaves and 2 fish thing.
Oh, does he?
Bring your 5 loaves and 2 fish, and let the Lord multiply it.
Dallas, you got to come on the podcast too.
Dallas.
But I want to encourage you men, especially, is because I know in the culture, And I know wherever you're at, you might be discouraged, but you don't know by you flashing that flicker of light who's going to see that and who's going to rally behind you.
Mm-hmm.
So you come to a conference like this, and you create this brotherhood, and also with your sisters in Christ as well. But then the point is that you go back to where you were, and that you bloom where you were planted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes all you need is that little bit of encouragement. Because this is all temporary. We have to remember that too. Where you are at individually in your place of life right now, it's temporary. Whether it's the most difficult time in your life, that might be hard to hear, but it's temporary. And this is your chance to build relationships with people who are seeking the same things that you are, and going out into the world and evangelizing.
And I think the use of the word temporary is perfect, because the whole your life on earth is temporary. The perspective that gives anything that we do purpose and meaning is the eternal perspective of the kingdom of heaven, right? I mean, if heaven doesn't exist, and hell doesn't exist, and God doesn't exist, and none of this matters, then what's the point? But like going to a conference and reinvigorating the part of our soul that finds purpose, the part of our soul that like gives us a reason for even existing. Why would you not go?
Right.
You know, it makes me think of the Han Solo line from when they redid the Star Wars movie. They did the episode 7, and I think it's episode 7. It might be. I don't know which one it is. I only watched them all once. No offense if you liked those. Where he? Oh yeah, because he. Oh, sorry, I'm not going to spoil that, but he can only give lines in the first of the 3. But anyway, just edit that part out. I don't know. But the line is the part where he's like, they're asking him about the Force, and he's like, it's real, all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, live as if that's the case,
right?
And see what happens. It's.
I mean, what truly and honestly, what do you have to lose? Honestly. And I know as a young man, you're thinking probably, if you're college age, you're like, okay, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to try to find my wife, I'm going to try to get married, maybe I'm going to go in the priesthood. There's always going to be that next thing, right? There's always going to be, okay, when I get the job, when I get a career, when I'm making, $1 million a year, when I'm doing
nice.
this, that, or, yeah, that'd be nice too, right?
Wow.
But there's always going to be that
now.
next thing that you are constantly searching for. And until you can accept who you are, where you are currently, you're always going to be searching for something else.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I can't emphasize enough the importance of having that community, like you mentioned, Dan, is so important, and especially having community of individuals who are like-minded like you, who are constantly looking to heaven, are constantly looking to become a saint. Because without that, you're just going to be, it's so easy to get devoured by the world, devoured by the devil, who's constantly prowling about the world seeking the ruin of souls. I finally quoted it correctly.
There it is.
Yes,
yes,
I did it. So finding that community is what I think this conference is all about.
And I think going to the conference is letting yourself realize that it does exist. It is possible. Go and encounter it, right? There's this line about mountain climbing that I was trying to pull up on my phone, but I can't find it. That's basically like the whole point of climbing the mountain is like you go to the top and you can see the incredible view. The point is not to stay on top of the mountain. Like you're going to be going through some valleys, but the idea is you've been on the top of the mountain and you've seen everything from the top of the mountain, so that when you go through the valleys, you won't see it, but you will have seen it. And you can carry with you the memory of having seen it and know that it is in fact real, even when it's dark and low and raining or whatever. But like, I think the idea of going is go to just essentially be supercharged.
Yes.
Go and rediscover and be like, oh my gosh, this is real. And I can make this happen. Because I think, the weight of the world can really drag you down. Even just recently, like I experienced that a lot. And go and rediscover what it is that that is driving any of this in the first place. Go and rediscover what the point of your whole life is. Not to put too dramatic of a spin on it, but I mean, you really can't.
Well, go and encounter Jesus.
Yeah.
And I think a conference like this, you can't help but be affected in one way or another. I'm not saying you're going to go there and you're going to have this profoundly spiritual experience. For some of you, probably will. But for those of you who don't, that doesn't mean you did it wrong or whatever the case might be. But just go and truly give what little you have
Your
to
loaves
Jesus
and fishes, yeah.
and see what happens. Again, like we said earlier, what do you have to lose? Be the light.
Be light.
So again, ladies and gentlemen listening, Seek 24 is from January 1st through the 5th, St. Louis, Missouri.
That's close to everybody.
That is pretty close to everybody. It's like the middle of the country.
People are listening from Alaska. That's not close to me, James.
Or Hawaii. Sorry.
It's close. Which one is it closer to? Think on your feet.
Alaska.
I don't know.
Probably Alaska.
Depends on the part.
Okay, well now we're getting geographical here. Gosh,
sorry guys. I'm so sorry. We were on such a roll. Oh my.
Closing it out.
I own it all.
He's fired.
I take over. Complete ownership for this.
I'm going to have to edit this out now.
Oh my gosh, don't do
more
it.
work
Don't
on
do it.
me.
Let people know that we're humans, you know?
No, we're perfect.
This is
what was I saying? Seek 24.
Seek 24.
January 1st through
St.
the
Louis.
5th. I'll leave links in the show notes for you guys. Purchase tickets.
Make sure you get ahead of that price change.
Yes, exactly. Which
Just like I
don't know
did.
What it is.
We'll
figure it out.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Go ahead and seek it out.
Oh. Put a little. Is that your challenge to them this week?
Yes. Seek out the Seek conference and see if it is prudent and practical for you to do so. Because obviously we understand financial, especially if you're in college, finances might be a little tough. But if you're able to discern that, see if it is.
Bring that to the Lord.
Bring it to the Lord.
He does crazy things sometimes.
He really does. If
you're
are
really
truly discerning it, and you are like, Lord, I want to go. I'm really feeling called, but I don't know how to afford this. Just give it to God. He will, trust me, he will take care of it. It's amazing how God works. So, thank you all for listening. Dan, thank you for sharing your experience with Seek 2019.
My pleasure.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, go out there and be a saint. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of The Manly Catholic. If you have not already done so, please hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts to make sure you don't miss a single episode. It will also help grow the show and reach as many men as possible. We truly think this podcast can change families and help men to change the world. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and God bless you.